Right. Okay, so thank you very much for coming. Kia ora to you both. Kia ora to you all, actually. It's my pleasure to welcome Gemma Saywell and Lauren Hancock from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, who are going to talk to you today about all the wonderful things that they do. Gemma is the Graduate Program Advisor in the Talent Acquisition team at MBIE, and Laura's in the International Labour Policy team. So take it away, Gemma and Lauren. Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. As Lucy has just kindly said, that we are from MBIE. Our graduate program is across MBIE and HUD, but it's just us at MBIE today. So happy to answer any questions a wee bit later on if you want to know a bit more about HUD, but just got MBIE today. I am going to start by sharing some information about the public sector. I figured that's pretty much why you're all here today. You're either interested in MBIE or the wider public sector, but then we're going to talk a bit about how to identify your skills. So there's some skills across the public sector that's pretty consistent pretty much within any role, and we're going to talk a bit about how that relates to you and how you might find working in the public sector as well. So being aware and making decisions in line with what's of interest to you rather than others is really key to making really good decisions for yourself. So this is about you and your journey as well as what's going to work for you. So whatever skills and experience you develop now is going to add to your kitty or your basket of what skills and experiences are available to you in the future. So that's kind of a bit of background about why we are presenting on this, because we're actually not recruiting until March. Some of you might have already applied and we're still going through the process for the 2021 cohort at the moment, but our applications for the 2022 cohort open early next year. So I didn't want this to be just a recruitment presentation because it's not, I think, why you're here, but also to give you something that you can take away and take into any role across not just the public sector, but any, I guess, corporate or professional role that you might end up in during your career. And as Lucy said, this is Lauren.
Kia ora, everybody.
Currently on the 2020 graduate program, so started in February.
Yeah. That's the one. It's been a bit of a wild ride the last couple of months, bit of a crazy time to start working, but it's a really exciting time to be in the public sector. So much going on.
Absolutely. Want to talk about this one?
Yep. So our role in a New Zealand system of government is to provide free and frank policy advice to the government. So we work alongside or under, I guess, a number of ministers of cabinet, and they've got their portfolios. So, for example, I work under the Minister of Immigration and the Minister of Workplace Relations and Safety, Minister Les Galloway, and we help the government to process their policy ideas and come up with really useful solutions for problems that New Zealand is kind of experiencing. We also serve successive governments regardless of what policy it is. So regardless of the result in September, we'll continue on as always, being impartial and just providing consistent advice. And we also help implement decisions made by the government, so more regulatory decisions. We help put the systems in place to make them work. And so policy is how politicians make a difference. So governments essentially make their mark on the economy and society through the policies that they instigate. For example, I guess one policy that's really prominent at the moment is the wage subsidy. And MBIE has been involved with that a little bit. The policy agenda is not really a neat list of agreed policy issues to be addressed by the government. It's kind of a collection of issues that command the attention of a particular government at a particular time. and it may not be the most important set of policy issues, but there's a lot of different areas, and some stuff is kind of quick fire response to issues like COVID or Whakaari White Island, or we also have longer term policy as well. For example, looking at ACC and how that should be implemented in the next 5 to 10 years. There's really 2 different types of policy. And so the government departments, so for example us, MB, we bring issues to the attention of the government to allow them to deal with them and respond appropriately and as necessary. So what does MB do? Well, what doesn't MB do? MB does everything. We're very involved in kind of all areas of New Zealand society. So as you can see on the slideshow, those are the kind of the main branches of MB, so the areas that people kind of work in. So building and construction, that's like building regulations, like so setting earthquake strengthening levels, for example, for buildings that need it, which is really relevant in Wellington. And so there's communications and information telecommunications. So that is ensuring access to the internet, to do with 5G at the moment, who controls airspace, radio waves. It's really interesting stuff. And we regulate oil, gas and mineral industries, and we're helping the government with the just transitions to a cleaner economy. And we manage the Crown Minerals Act as well. We also do employment relations and standards to set the rules around employment and the rights of workers, and like how many breaks you're entitled to, or minimum wage, or health and safety standards, consumer law like the Consumer Guarantees Act, competition law, so regulating how businesses operate and making sure that they're being fair, so you have the best outcome for consumers. We have regions teams who work on ensuring that we're not just focused, because it's really easy to sit in Wellington and only be focused on the big kind of urban centres. So we also work to make sure that there's jobs and policy that's suitable for provincial New Zealand as well. Education and skills, so matching people with the kind of jobs that are available, and also as well immigration policy. So basically the purpose of this sits under employment, and that it's to fit skills shortages and kind of fill the gaps where we don't have New Zealanders who can do jobs. Yeah, and more. There's so much more as well.
I mean, we've got like space policy.
Yeah.
So we regulate all of the rockets going out of Rocket Lab. We basically do standards New Zealand. So like if you ever have a bike helmet and you see like a little sticker on it that's been, it means that it's been checked to make sure that it meets the safety standards. So that's all out of MB.
Or like what I do a lot of correspondence with the International Labour Organization in Geneva. So ensuring that New Zealand's meeting their international obligations for labour rights, and also with APEC. So obviously New Zealand's hosting APEC next year, so MB's doing a lot of organisation around that, which is really exciting stuff.
And even things like the scales, the self-serve checkouts, making sure that, when you weigh an apple in one shop, that's the same weight as another supermarket, so that consistency. So like things that you've never really thought about day to day, MB kind of has a touch point on. So if you are interested in, climate change, there'll be an area for you here. Like there's just pretty much anything. Yeah, so I find it really hard when I'm going across the unis and I'm like, what does MB do? I'm like, what are you interested in? Like, you tell me and I'll tell you how we fit. So yeah, I guess if anyone has any questions or wants any clarification on any of it, then do let me know, because it's, like I said earlier, it's a joint program with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development as well, so that opens up another whole area that you might be interested in too. So as I kind of touched on earlier, I guess I just wanted to talk a bit about the skills that you have and how you can bring that into your career. Because once you really know who you are as a person and what you want, you'll be able to look at your options and opportunities and create possibilities in your future that aligns with that really clearly. So I want to instill some confidence in you that your decisions that you make are the right ones based on what's really important to you. So hopefully by the end of this exercise, you're going to be able to articulate what you're good at, what you're interested in, and have a really good understanding of whether working in the public sector is a right option for you. So yeah, I guess we'll just kick off. Has anyone not received the document? Still coming, Minami? You don't have it? Oh, okay, that's all right.
Minami, do you have another email address and I'll send it directly to you? Pop it in the chat for me.
Cool. Oh yeah, is there a chat?
Yep.
There must be. Okay, let me know, Lucy, if you want to just put your hand up if there's a question there that I need to. Oh, there.
Oh, lots of questions, hang on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it should have been sent out from Career Hub, is that right, Lucy?
Yes, yeah, it should have been sent out from us this morning. Minami, I will try that for you now. Hang on 1 second.
If you want to just put your email address in there, then Lucy can send it out to you. I have a bit more to say anyway, that's cool. So as you can see by this diagram, there is really an overlap of interest and skills. So you might not always be skilled at stuff that you're interested in, or you might not actually be interested in the stuff that you're really, really good at. So I guess by narrowing down that overlap, then that makes your future career really clear and helps you narrow down what you might be interested in doing in the future. So I've actually, a bit of research has shown that people who use their strengths are most likely to be 6 times more engaged in their jobs, 6 times more likely to do what they do best every day, 3 times more likely to have an excellent quality of life, and more positive than people who don't use their strengths. So, I mean, I've kind of been working in an office for a wee while now, and I think if I didn't like admin work or I didn't like data analysis and stuff like that, then I'd be pretty miserable. So I should have chosen a job that didn't do that, but I haven't. So, you know, but I do enjoy it, so it's fine. But once you can articulate your strengths, then you can use them in your, not just your decision making, but also how you sell yourself as well. So you can highlight them in your CV and in your LinkedIn profile. And I'll go a bit in detail a bit later on how you can use them. I've used our selection process just as an example, but you could use them the same way in any selection process that you're going through as well. And also, if you're thinking of like switching your area of study or something like that, then you could use this for narrowing down those decisions as well. Next. Yeah. So this is where you open the attachment if you've got it. Do people have, oh yeah, okay. It looks like people are getting it now. Cool. So it kind of looks like, well, it looks exactly like, how do I, it looks like this. So open this attachment, and I've just kind of gone over what roles, what skills might be used in the public sector. I just kind of want to take some time to let you go through it, because I know that the likelihood of actually coming back to this might not be super high if you're busy students. But maybe if you want to just, I thought maybe 10 minutes, but that might be a bit long. Does 10 minutes seem all right to you guys? Yeah? Cool. So I'll just explain a bit about what we're going to do. So alongside each skill, there's a few boxes there you can see. So tick the interest box right now is enjoy very much, or like using, prefer not to use, or strongly dislike. And then next go through and think about how good you are at each of those skills. So tick a competency box as either one of highly skilled, skilled, or little or no skills. So I've taken out things like mechanics, like if you're interested in mechanical engineering, taken out things like nursing or treating other people, carpentry, athletics, so stuff that wouldn't necessarily be used in the public sector, but obviously that's not to say don't not think about that stuff, because if that's what is interest of you, there can be overlap, and we can talk about that a wee bit later if you've got any specific interests. I don't know if I know every job in the public sector, but I might be able to give you an idea of where they might have some overlap. But yeah, so it's just stuff that you might be using in the public sector. So maybe if I go, I had like a little timer. And you can mute or turn your camera off or whatever. If you finish early, you could just send a message in the chat or do a thumbs up or put your hand up or whatever it's called and let me know. I don't know how long it's going to take. Did we all get finished? Oh, cool. Awesome. That was a good time. All right. Make this big again. Cool. So a strength is where you have both a high rating of interest and a high rating of a skill. Of skill. Strengths should make up the majority of where you spend your time. So when you're looking for your role, for your job, you want to have a look at your strengths and then look at the competencies of the role and go, do these align? And theoretically, there should be about 70% of what you should be doing, should be utilizing these skills. And when you both enjoy and are skilled in tasks, you will likely excel, not because not only do you enjoy them, but you're also good at them. So you're going to spend your time wanting to improve them and you're going to enjoy your day. So go back on that form, on the exercise, and identify where you've ticked both enjoy very much and highly skilled. And there should be a little box at the bottom of where you can write those in. That's pretty easy to kind of get your head around, I think. But this is developing your potential skills. So what about those skills that you've identified that you enjoy, but you haven't really had the opportunity to develop yet? So these are your potential skills. So go back and have a look where you've ticked both enjoy very much and skilled or little to no skill. So these present a fantastic opportunity to be clear about what you might want to teach yourself or gain help from someone else, or maybe go on a course or study in the area that you have identified. So spend some time developing those because you like them. Possible stresses. So this is where you've ticked highly skilled and prefer not to use or strongly dislike. So a possible stressor is where you're good at it but have very little interest in it. So don't lose heart. Most relevant is how much of these tasks that you have to do, and recognizing that there will be some of these tasks in most options. So like I said earlier, like maybe I'm not very interested in data entry, but I've got that mind where it's really easy for me to not make mistakes and very analytical, but it's really tedious and I can't be bothered and I'm not interested in the results. So I'm not actually talking about my personal experience, but as an example. So each job and study option is likely to have parts that are just not enjoyable for you, and they have to be done, and that's fine. But I would say about 15% about what you do day to day is about right. Anything more than that, and it's going to tip into it not being right for you. And then lastly, anywhere where you rate yourself as having a low level of skill and interest should be avoided and not be part of your future. Just don't even go there. Know yourself better than that and make your decisions that shape around that, because you don't want to end up in a position where, okay, this is just a stepping stone for the future, but actually it's just not going to be worth it for you if you are not good at it and you don't enjoy it. Has anyone got any questions about that? You can come off mute, we can talk. You can ask them at the end as well, that's fine too. So what do we look for here at MB? So I don't know, you might be interested in this, but I guess it gives some really quite clear-cut examples of how an employer might phrase some of these skills and what to look for. So I've also pulled up our position description as well, so that you can see how we've explained them. I've tried to make it really clear because I think it's really important that there shouldn't be any surprises from when you apply to a job and when you're actually in the role or interviewing for it. So I'm not going to ask you any questions in an interview, for example, around if you could bring one person back from the dead to have dinner with, who would it be and why? Like, that's just not relevant to the role. And I know some employers want to get to know you with a question like that, but it's not going to tell me that you're going to be good at the role, no matter what you answer. So I don't think it's relevant. So these skills are really, really clear cut and give you some really big hints around our application process and what kind of questions we might be asking, or what we're going to be looking for in the group exercise, for example. So this is actually what we assess for through our process, and Lauren's just been through it relatively recently, so is it kind of making a bit more sense?
Yeah,
through the process?
Definitely. So like, I think maybe Gemma's probably going to cover this a bit further, but it's really important to look at these things and say, okay, what are examples of these in my life? How have I displayed that? Because that's really what they ask you through the whole start to finish process, is like, we want these skills, how have you done these previously? Or
yeah, we're just looking for evidence. So I was going to go through that list of skills that I gave you and include these on there, but actually I thought it would be really helpful for you to go back and identify how the other ways that the same skill might be phrased across different position descriptions for different roles, for different organizations, because it's not going to be listed the same way. Like, for example, collaboration, we phrase it as collaboration in mahitahi, and I think it is phrased as collaboration on that list, but it could also take, the positive disposition, or willing to work with others in a group, or it could be anything. So actually, how do those skills that you've identified in yourself, how can you navigate that through a position description and align those? So we look for skilled writers, so people who can write clearly, articulately and logically. Critical thinkers who use well-reasoned logic to solve problems. Evidence gatherers who research, identify and make use of relevant information. Nimble learners who are flexible and responsive to change. Supportive team players, so that's your collaboration. I've phrased it slightly differently there. I should have just looked at my notes, but so supportive team players who build partnerships and work collaboratively. Persuaders and influencers who gain trust and support of others. Purpose-driven actioners, so that's your action orientation, people who take on new challenges and opportunities. And decision makers who make sound decisions even when you don't have all of the information that you need to make that decision. So this is our application process. So I promised I would go into a bit more detail about how you can apply them through the process. So in your CV, you might have heard of having a skills section, and a lot of people recommend just listing them. And I think internationally, things like an ATS, so an applicant tracking system, they might use AI, artificial intelligence, to pull those keywords from your CV to create their shortlist. In New Zealand, that's not super common. We don't do it here. Maybe some of the bigger tech firms or your big four might do something like that, but you have an actual human reading ours. So I guess we, like Lauren said, we're looking for that evidence. So if you just say, I'm a people person, that doesn't really mean anything to me. So give us actual examples about the value that your skills has brought to your roles or previous experience, because we don't expect you to have any actual job experience at the moment because you're just students. So, but you might have done an internship, you might have done some babysitting, volunteering, you might have even been on a committee, or there's heaps of different things that you can actually apply your skills. You don't necessarily need to have had a professional internship to be able to apply some of these. One example that I always use is, so one of our candidates was talking about a time where he's used data to make a decision, and his experience was in a kitchen and was cooking chicken, and he was like, oh no, how do I know when the chicken's ready? And so the background information that he gave around his decision process was amazing. He went into detail around like the implications of if he made the wrong decision and took the chicken off the grill too early, and the impact that would have on the business, the customers, and their reputation. And even just like the mess that he would have had to have cleaned up if someone was sick. Like it was amazing. And then he's like, oh, so who else could I have asked about this? Well, it seemed a bit outrageous to go to my head chef and ask his second opinion to say, is this chicken ready? So he's like, that's why I ruled that option out, because that was too much of a big step. Does that make sense? So you don't necessarily have to have made a decision in the context of a professional environment, but you have used decision making in your life, I guarantee it. So think about a time where you have used it, and think about the background of it, and use examples where the outcome was in your favor. It's kind of awkward if you go through like, yeah, this was this big process that I did to come to a decision, and then it was like, well, was that a good decision? And you're like, no. So just come prepared with examples that paint you in a really good light. So I've skipped the video interview a wee bit, but and also your in-person interview, but all of our questions use the STAR technique, which should give you a really good outline of how you should be phrasing your responses, to give enough background so that we have the information that we need to see those skills in your answers. In your cover letter, you don't really need to go too much into your skills. What we're really looking for there is your motivation. So that might be your skills. Maybe you go, look, I'm really good at this, I'm really interested in this, and this is how it relates to the role, and so that's why I'm applying. But that's what you're asking. Answering there is, what is your motivation for applying? Why MB? Why HUD? Why policy? Why the public sector? So actually knowing your skills is going to help you answer that as well, because you'll know what attracts you about the public sector or about MB. Like, you've heard a wee bit about what we do, so maybe some of that resonated with you, and that's the kind of thing that we want to see in your cover letter. The situational judgment questionnaire is a multi-choice questionnaire that is really behavioural. So it does, again, assess those competencies or those skills that we're looking for through the process in a really tangible, clear way. So it's kind of giving you a real life scenario that you would come across in the role, and it's how do you demonstrate the skills that we're looking for to behave appropriately in response to that situation. The video interview is one way on Sonru, so there isn't another person in that moment looking at you, so it's really good. It means that you can schedule it for a time that suits you. You can take your time, you can practice a bit, and then we can watch it whenever we're free, which is really helpful for us, because it means that I can pass it on to other key stakeholders like managers. If I'm thinking of placing you in a team, I can say, here's their video interview, and it's like they've interviewed you already. So it sort of prevents lots and lots of interviews through the process of all the people who want to meet you. The written exercise, again, assessing those competencies. We're looking for policy development. We're looking at your ability to make decisions and draw evidence from things that might not necessarily be really obvious. So we give you basically a case study. That's what we did this year. It might change for next year, I'm not sure. And we're looking for your response. So how might you actually do this piece of work as if you were on the role? So it gives us a really good idea of your ability and your skills. And then the assessment centre, we fly everyone in from around the country, and you have a half day on site. Before that, you will do some psychometric testing, which is kind of broken into two sections. There's one which is ability testing, so that's your abstract reasoning, your numerical reasoning, and your verbal reasoning. So really clear cut. You can find heaps of examples online of what that looks like to prepare you. And the other one is a BAQ, so a business attitudes questionnaire. So we look at the big 5 or top 5 personality traits, and we don't select based on that. We're not going to say you're too much of an introvert, we're not interested, but it does really help us place you into a team. If they're a team of really big extroverts, we're not going to be like, oh, maybe that isn't the best fit for you. You know, you're quite reserved and you might not gel with that manager really well, so we'll place you in a different team. So that helps us a lot. And again, the interview, pretty much same as the video interview, but in person. There'll be a panel, so it'll be 2 people, one usually from policy and one from people and culture. And again, it'll be asking those competency-based questions, so you'll use the STAR technique. No surprises. Again, those are the competencies that we're assessing for, so it should be quite easy for you to prepare for that. In the group exercise, you get given an exercise which you won't have any experience in. It's very unlikely that you will have done this before, but that's good because it puts everyone on an even playing field, because we're not looking for people who have studied policy, we're not looking for people who've studied economics, we're not looking for people who have had experience in the public sector before. And if we gave you something that was a real life example, then that would give them an advantage, and that's not fair to you. So you know, you could be a creative writing background and still do really, really well in this, because it's about your reasoning, your influencing, collaboration, all of those kind of soft skills that give us a really good idea of how you're going to behave in the real life situation. So do know these competencies really, really well. Honestly, everything that you do during the selection process relates back to them. So, and that's the same. So actually what I'll do is I will pull up our position description. Can you all see that? So this is how we phrase it in our position description. And like I said, every organisation, this will look slightly different, but they will have it. They will have what qualities you need to have to succeed in the role. And that's as much for their benefit as it is for yours, because they want to know that the people who are applying have already gone, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me, and it saves them a lot of time. So this is obviously policy knowledge and skills. That's just what makes a good policy advisor. But this organizational one is really what you need to be looking at. So cultivates innovation. That also relates to our values. So MB has a set of values. So Maya, bold and brave is what this aligns to. So are you the kind of person that's going to challenge the status quo? Which you might think as a new grad, that's not something that we're looking for, but please challenge us. We need to change. We need to stay innovative and top of the game. And you guys actually have a lot of value in that you're bringing the latest knowledge from your area of expertise, whatever you've studied, bring that knowledge to us, because that's your value add. And if you can translate what you've learned from your studies into the role, then that's awesome. That's exactly what we're looking for. So don't be afraid to tell people that we could do things a bit better. Like that's the kind of skill that we're looking for. Which is really hard. I get that. Like it's not easy. But if you get any questions through the selection process, that's you know, you've identified an area where there needs to be a change. What would you do? Change it. I'm basically just telling you the answers. Change it. Don't just go with the set. We don't know what we're doing. Assume that. Nimble learning, again, Maya, bold and brave. So we learn as we go, and when we're facing new situations, that's fine. Like COVID, if anything, has given a really good example of that. So we had no systems necessarily in place for how to deal with a pandemic. We kind of had like business continuity plans, but you know, like actually nothing prepares you for the real life, you know. So we need to be learning as we go. We needed to act really, really quickly and identify failures and where we had areas for growth and mistakes, and build on that really, really quickly. So that's a quality that we need in you as well. Collaborative, mahi tahi, better together. In policy, we work really closely, not just with our teams, or with our branches, so bigger groups within MB, but we work cross-agency as well. We always need to have input from other agencies. So, you know, we couldn't have done White Island, for example, without the Ministry for Environment. Like, that's just super obvious. And not just that, but also the communities as well. It's really important that what we do is for the benefit of the people, for the wider communities, and doesn't just serve one group. It needs to serve the whole community. Otherwise, it's just not going to be good. So it's really important that you know how to collaborate, not just within your team, but with people who are different from your area as well. Customer focus, paikaharangi, that wasn't really one that we are assessing for through the process, but it's there anyway. It's kind of things that we assess through other competencies, like your collaboration and your influencing. But I mean, in here, nimble learning from the past, identify opportunities, like that's just absolutely the same competencies. There's a lot of overlap. Action orientation. Do you do what you say you will do? Can you be relied upon? Can you have a can-do attitude and hold each other to account? So if someone does something wrong, are you the kind of person that goes, hey, you know, I need to fix this? Or do you just sit back and go, oh no, they made a mistake? It's pretty obvious the kind of person that we're looking for. And decision quality. There's not going to be a right answer in policy most of the time. You do have to use your own judgment, and you have to use your judgment to make a decision that is still reliable and a good decision based on the information that you've got. So you need to know, when do you actually need more information and who would you go to get that information, but also when an 80% solution is going to suffice and when it's not. Because otherwise things could be held up forever and ever if we're always just trying to look for the thing that suits everyone. It's just not going to happen. And then a commitment to the public service as well. So you've kind of got an idea of the values that we've got. So they're here as well, paikaharangi, Ponomata Tika. They're quite new, they're about a year old, but we pride ourselves on them quite a lot and how we relate those into our work. So if you were to mention that during your application process, that you know the values of the organisation and how that relates to you and how it resonates with you, then that's going to look awesome. That's really impressive. And that's not just for MB, that's for any organisation who's assessing. So you should be able to recite the values of the organisation that you're interviewing for. So all of this information is in the position description. Every organisation, every role will have one of these. So look, there's heaps of information there about our values, about our structure, what the purpose of the role is, what are the deliverables. So what are you going to be expected to do in the role? So I guess knowing how to use these for your benefit is going to be a skill that takes you through your entire career. Every role that you apply for, you're going to need to relate it back to the position description, because that's kind of their purpose. So if you're not sure how to use them, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because look at all this information. You're going to know what the questions are when you're interviewing. You're going to know what they are. Unless they ask you really weird questions, like who are you going to bring back from the dead? But I can't help you with it because I don't know. But I think most of the time, most organizations really just want to get to know who you are, what your values are, and why you're interested in their organization and what skills you can bring to the role. So by taking the time to identify them now is going to really serve you well in the future for when you not just applying for this first graduate program, but for any role through your entire career. So yeah, taking the time to narrow down not just your interests, but what you're good at is really, really important as well. So I've kind of spoken a lot more than I'd planned, but if anyone does have any questions, we're here to help. Not just about the task, but about the role, about the process, about other jobs that you're applying for? Has anyone seen a weird position description? Anything?
I just had a question about the STAR approach, because I'm coming to the assessment centre in August, and
Yes.
I was just wondering, to best prepare for that, would we go through the position description, identify certain skills that we've exemplified in our own lives? Like, is that the best way to prepare, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. So the structure, because you've already been through the video interview, the structure of the in-person interview is going to be largely the same. So the kind of questions that you're going to be asked are looking for the situation. Do you know what the STAR result framework is? So for those who don't, it's situation, task, action, result. So what was the scenario that you were faced with? What was the task? So what needed to get done? What did you do? What did you do? Not your team, but what did you individually do? Because otherwise, like, I'm not interested in what your team did, because I actually want to know what the role that you played was and the result. So like I said, make sure the result is positive. So it gives you that full background of, or gives us, sorry, that full background of why you, sorry, how you demonstrated those skills. So yeah, absolutely. That's what we're going to be assessing on.
I think as well, this maybe it goes without saying, but I found it really helpful to, like, I made my flatmate sit down with me and, like, before the interview and go through everything and actually, like, practicing verbalizing it, because it's one thing to think about it or write it down or whatever, but the process of actually practicing explaining it in a clear and concise way was really, really helpful, and I'd really recommend anybody do that.
Oh, awesome.
Absolutely. And if you don't have anyone who's willing to sit with you, record yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lauren. I think that's really valuable advice. And yeah, so corral your flatmates. But if you don't have anyone, you know, we're very happy to help in the Career Development Centre. We have a thing called the Big Interview where you can record yourself and practice. But yeah, if you need any advice or an audience, the Career Development Centre's here. So yeah, excellent advice, Lauren. Thank you.
I've just seen a question come through about different locations. So working in the public sector, but staying in Dunedin. No, and the reason we don't have roles available in different areas at the moment, it might be something that we look at doing in the future, even though we have got an office in Dunedin, is really because the graduate program, the benefit of the graduate program is the support network. So you have a whole cohort of like 30 people that support you, and if you're the only one in Dunedin, then it's going to be really challenging for you. A buddy, so we give you someone who you can kind of lean on through your first year and a half with us, who's been there, who's done it before, who can guide you through. And also your manager. It's really important that you have ongoing conversations and get ongoing feedback about your work from someone in person and regularly. And I know that we've just seen how we can all work remotely, but we're a really big organization, and the benefit sometimes of just being able to rock on up to your manager and or even a senior in your team and go, hey, I want to send this email, but can you just proofread it for me? Like, I want to just I'm working on this document, can you just have a second eye over it? Am I missing anything? And during the first 16 months of your career, that's really, really important. So having that feedback.
Really invaluable, like going from having that in-person feedback to briefly not having it when we were getting up and running with COVID, like you felt the difference. And I think as well, there's maybe it's a bit understated, the cohort nature of working at MB. There's like 30 of us and it's awesome. So if you're struggling with something, you can say to one of the other grads, like, I'm really finding this really hard, and they'll actually say to you, well, so am I. And it just helps you kind of normalize things and realize, actually, yeah, starting a new job's really weird, and just it's a sense of like camaraderie. It's really awesome.
We do have some people working in policy in Dunedin, and it's definitely possible for you to move back there or anywhere in New Zealand, like not just Dunedin, but we've got, I think, we've got even,
Even in Auckland.
we have more people placed off overseas than MFAT. So, because 60% of MB is immigration policy. So, or not just policy, but immigration in general. So, yeah, there's definitely potential for you to move to a different city and do policy, but just that grad stage is just so important. Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, Anna, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. So you said the recruitment happened in March, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the one for this summer, so 2020, 2021 is kind of been and gone. But so next March you'll be recruiting for next summer. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I'm with it.
Hi, Claire.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm an international student. I've graduated, so I do have a post-work visa and stuff, but then is there an opportunity for international students?
Yeah, absolutely. As an international student, you'll be eligible for the 3-year post-study work visa.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you.
That's all right. I think we're going to get booted out of our room.
I've got to go to a meeting.
Yeah, it's right on 10, so I think we probably do need to wrap it up. But thank you so much, Gemma and Lauren, for your invaluable insights. It's been really interesting. Thank you. And thank you to all you students for attending. That's great. I'm sure you've learned a lot. And yeah, it will be on Career Hub under the resources tab videos next week if you want to go back and listen to anything else, or just, yeah. And yeah, we're here at the Career Development Centre if you've got questions, if you want to practice your interviewing, that sort of thing, we're here. So Gemma and Lauren, thank you very, very much. It's been great.
Thank you for having
See ya.
us.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
There is an email address down the bottom there, so grad.inquiries@mb, that's me. So feel free to just send me an email about anything. I'm happy to have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was just great. Thank you so much.